Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler, Bugsy Malone's over here. It's Sunday morning, it's bright and early. It's cold though, I hope you're all happy and healthy doing the things you love, those you love to do them with. Guys, let's talk a little bit of transfer news, views and clues, shall we, this morning, as we're about to enter, game week 9 for Tottenham, away at Everton today. A really difficult encounter is ahead of us, but that doesn't stop the rumour mill starting. We'll deal with the game later in the watch along or whatever, but for now let's get into it. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe if you haven't already. Really appreciate any help you can offer in that regard. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. Right guys, where are we going? Let's start with a really underrated option out of the Juventus stables today, shall we? A man by the name of Kalulu. Juventus playing a back three predominantly. He's basically made the right side, either as a right back or the right side of a three, his own. Can play in both. Has played in a back four before. A really smart player, really interesting player. I've done a lot of work on him on the Y Scout, and I'll be honest, I'll come out right out of the traps. I really do rate this guy. As a defender, his stats won't look sensational on the FB refs. I'll see if I can throw them up relative to either centre-backs or to right-backs, just because of the way and the context in which Juventus play their football generally. Obviously with a bit more possession traditionally, and so sort of less pressure and less frequency of having to do certain disciplines than other players that might have higher percentage points than he does. But if you actually go and look at him, this is probably an eye test verdict rather than a stats verdict on the defensive side. But his positional play is phenomenal. He doesn't slide in, but when he does get involved, he's incredibly physical and he's incredibly apt with his timing. I really do rate this guy. I think he's about 6'1", but he has unbelievably long legs, and he's got an ability to carry the ball with just a pronounced kind of effortlessness that looks more like in line with a midfielder. Think Pape Sarr in terms of super long legs, super long stride, but with more physicality, more sort of strength and breadth and just sort of broader shoulders and an ability to kind of carry that frame through those long legs. Really pacey as well. Got a top speed on him that can get him out of trouble defensively. So sort of akin to, I guess, like a Micky van der Ven, but on the right-hand side. And just very strong in the air. From what I've seen of him, and like I say, I've done quite a lot of digging around the Y Scout. He looks like a player that would really fit the Premier League. Question marks obviously regarding the fact that he predominantly does play in that sort of back three model. Then, how easy is it to translate? And look, his rise to kind of prominence, even though he's not necessarily a household name unless you really sort of spend a lot of time watching Serie A football. He's sort of got himself into the French team. I think it was in 2020, out of nowhere, he was playing in 4th division French football. And then he went to Juve, amazing scouting, and within a couple of years he'd played like 76 games for Juve by 2022. He's now 25 years old, very comfortable on the ball. He loves a long ping into the channels. And kind of when I was looking at it on the Y Scout tool, when you sort of look by the discipline of his long-range passing and you just zone in on every example of that, you really have to go quite far back to see too many kind of errors or faux pas in that kind of ability to read the flight, read the sort of the move that the player that he's trying to reach, the run that guy's making. And so he just sort of screams to someone that's got a good peripheral, a good ability to read the game. And as I say, he's got that physicality and the athleticism that could really work in the Premier League. So really interesting story, and apparently Tottenham are looking at utilising Fabio Paratici's relationships maybe to steal a march. That's the sort of the length and breadth of the story, that Juve have got financial issues and that they don't want to sell the player. They love him over there. They want to keep him. He would obviously probably prefer a pay rise or whatever, and that opportunity to come over here. He's already broken through into the French team on a couple of different occasions. And yeah, like I say, the rumours are that Tottenham are very much interested, and a front and centre if there was the opportunity, if Juve couldn't sort of refuse a certain bid. I think around 28 million euros is the valuation on transfer market. And so a player that, I'll be honest, like the more I looked into him, the more I was thinking, I could see it here. I could see him sort of figuring out how to sort of play into this system. If we're looking for someone that can come in and do a bit more of the kind of right-back stuff, you know, to give Pedro Porro some competition and some ability to give a pause, then with his talents on the ball, but also his defensive capabilities, I think it would work. I really do. And he is not the only name that's on the transfer zeitgeist rumour mill list this morning. We're also looking at another right back, apparently. Story broke that Konsa from Aston Villa fame, that Tottenham Hotspur are very much in and around a five-team battle to sign Konsa. Aston Villa player, they don't really want to sell him. Obviously, Konsa's a brilliant player, like, you know, Prem proven, experienced. He's only got 2 years left on his contract. Aston Villa's still a little bit cautious about what they're doing with PSR and FFP, and that he would be open-minded to moving to another project. I don't really know how people that are not affiliated with Tottenham, where they would stack rank the Aston Villa project versus the Tottenham project. You know, two teams that are, I think, have similar potential, similar ambitions, similar levels of squad quality on overall, different strengths in different areas maybe. So would Konsa see it as a sideways move? Possibly. The other teams that are mentioned in that five-man list include Chelsea and Liverpool and Manchester United as well. So be interesting. But what I find interesting about both of those stories is that they're kind of centre-backs that have the ability, if necessary, to play more as a right side, maybe like a defensive right-sided, you know, player that can do that's a bit versatile, that certainly has the physicality and the defensive pronouncement in their skill sets that would make you feel a little bit more comfortable if Tottenham's scouting the team were looking at our right side defensively and thinking, well, you know, most teams do attack us down that side more so than down our left side, down the opposition's right side, possibly because they see Pedro Porro as a defensive weakness. And so, you know, you have to bear that in mind. We don't really have a fourth fullback. And as I've said before, me personally, I don't think that Jed Spence is good enough going forward yet in his career with the ball to have him be a sufficient replacement for Pedro Porro on the right-hand side. If needs must, if Pedro Porro was to get an injury, God forbid, but if he was, then obviously you could play him out there. That is his sort of natural side. But I don't think he has those chemistry and relationships that are built in front of him on either side whenever he's played in the Tottenham shirt. Pedro Porro seems to find a way to make it work with whoever has been in front of him. Destiny Udogie, to me, is the more natural left-sided, obviously a left-sided defender. But where Jed Spence excels and is better than either of them is obviously when, you know, in one-on-one defensively. But he's much better at doing that side of his game on the left because, as I've said before, and we all know this, he's right-footed, and so he has that brilliant ability to just show enough to the left-footed right winger of the opposition to want to make them cut in on their stronger side, which also happens to be his strongest side as well. When you put that and you sort of duplicate or template that and put it on the right-hand side, and you're showing people just enough to make them want to cut in on their stronger side, but you're cutting in onto Jed's weaker side, does it have the same output? I would say no. And then when you combine that with the fact that he doesn't get forward well enough as well as Pedro Porro, and you have a guy in front of him like Mohamed Kudus who likes to do things his own way anyway and take the ball himself, and so really what the fullback is, his role is offensively with Kudus in front of him, is more of a support act, then is Jed Spence good enough at crossing or any of those sorts of options relative to Pedro Porro? The answer for me is no. I'd love to know your thoughts. And so maybe you're looking for someone, therefore, in a defensive option that can play as a right back as well as a centre-back option should we need it. And look, at the moment, guys, we sort of are getting to that point where we are looking at a little bit thin at the back. You know, we haven't seen anything from Radu Dragusin. We haven't seen anything from Kota Takai. We also, of course, have Romero out injured. And Ben Davies is out injured as well at the moment. So we're 4 centre-backs light at the moment. And we are 1 injury away from a bit of a crisis there in the back line. Destiny Udogie's also out at the same time. It's problematic. We had Archie Gray being shoehorned onto the left-hand side. But January can't come soon enough for Tottenham in the hope that we can get some reinforcements. We've had this argument and debate on the channel and across the social media between us all for the last couple of weeks. What is the priority now in January? We're seeing a slightly improved version of Wilson Odobert, but even the best version of himself still isn't quite at the level where you're really confident about the balance that the forward line can provide with him over there. You do definitely need a top draw left winger to be in front of him in the queue. You also need, obviously, help in the striker department. We don't have any real confidence, I think, amongst the fan base in what we have in that regard. And I think there's a lot of arguments to say that we need a midfielder that's a bit of a different profile than what we currently have to be able to connect the dots between the defensive side of the game and the offensive side of the game. And at the moment, that isn't really fulfilled with what we have. There is a name I'm going to be bringing to your attention in a moment. Kees Smit of AZ Alkmaar, who is, again, a previous link from the summer, but he's back on the radar again. I'll talk to you about him in a moment. And so with January just being around the corner, you have to kind of worry, where is the priority? Who is going to be the lion's share of the budget's sort of this distribution, if you like? And for me, I like the idea of a fullback coming in. I would make the argument, though, that if we are going to find a centre-back that can happen to double up as a fullback as well, that sort of dual role thing, I think on balance you still need a left-footed, left-sided centre-back as much as you do a fullback. And you're not going to find a player that can equally play well as a left-sided centre-back but also then double up as a right-back. And so what Tottenham might end up doing, because there's just too much to do and not enough budget to do it all in one go, is they might end up looking for a centre-back, who is a left-sided, left-footed one, who can then also play as a left-back, similar to like a Micky van der Ven sort of skill set. And then, and so if that's the case, then obviously Jed Spence would be probably repositioned as the right-back in Pedro Porro's absence. And look, Pedro Porro does need competition, and he also does need a break. He's played the vast majority, probably like 95% of minutes that have been available for the best part of 2 years. And that, for me, is something that you can't depend on that forever, because the human body is a fragile thing. I think we're already seeing certain over-dependence on certain players down our right-hand side, and I think it's starting to show. Kudos looked absolutely shattered against Monaco. And I think Pedro Porro at times can look a little bit tired, despite the fact that he seems to be built like a man of steel sort of ingredients, isn't he? Anyway, so those are the two stories. So we've got Konza. Listen, I really love that player. He's a fantastic player. And he's got 2 years left on his contract. Villa having the problems financially, potentially. Are they going to look to sell? Possibly. How much would it take to get him out? A lot of money. Does he solve the problem when we've already got Romero, that hopefully won't be out for too long? And you've got Kevin Danso, who's been superb. I don't think he's ever put a foot wrong, really, in a Tottenham shirt. Not that I can think of, or not enough to sort of challenge his status as number 2 in the chain on the right-hand side. And this other guy, Kalulu, for me is a really, really interesting player. I'd encourage you guys to go and check him out on whatever versions of scouting tools or just YouTube that you can. His long-range passing is fantastic. His positional sense is fantastic. He doesn't slide in, but he gets it right most of the time. I really do like this player, and if there was an opportunity to bring him in predominantly as a right-sided, like a right-back in the way that we play it, and also then double up in the world where we did have to need him as a centre-back as well, then for me it makes sense. Really like him, and I think that you could take advantage of the situation at Juventus. Anyway, we'll move on to the last story for you guys in the interest of time, and that is of course Kees Smit, the AZ Alkmaar midfielder. Again, I'll probably have to throw the stats up on this one. I did a review for you guys on Kees Smit way back in the summer, early part of the summer I think it was. Really interesting 19-year-old, sort of dubbed as the next Kevin De Bruyne. Can play as an 8, can play as a 10. He's very, very versatile, and I really do like the look of this kid. When I saw him, I remember looking at him on the Y Scout before, and he's just improved this season as well. His stats look sensational. His ability to carry the ball into the final third, passes into the final third, dribbles, take-ons. He really does have that kind of well-rounded midfield maestro department to his game. He's playing at AZ Alkmaar, and look, we know the kind of difficulty in gauging how ready someone is by the standards of the Dutch league when they come to the Premier League. Obviously, it's a different beast, isn't it? Different kettle of fish altogether. And look, he's 19 years old, so plenty of time on his side. I really do rate this player. He's good defensively as well. If I'm going to pull out the kind of the weaknesses in his game, I would say sometimes positionally, defensively, from set pieces, he can go a little bit awry. From what I've seen on the edge of the box, he can sort of be a little bit asleep. So, on the defensive side, from structural places, he needs a little bit of work. Well, it's a lot of work, really, and a lot of support in the timing of his tackles. He can be overly aggressive and mistime things, give away cheap free kicks, give away a couple of penalties. His discipline has been a little bit lacking in some of those departments in key moments, in key games. But those things come with maturity and time and a little bit of coaching. But honestly, I'm nitpicking a little bit because he's not that sort of player. He isn't a six. He has obviously at times had to play the defensive side of the game, as all midfielders have to do these days. But he really is a ball-playing, ball-carrying, wonderful passer of the ball, and a guy who connects the defence to the offence in transition. The sort of profile that I would argue that we need. The sort of player that Bentancur probably used to be more than he is now, following his injury and his layoffs, and maybe the confidence in his game has gone. This guy's more mobile. He can get around the pitch, and as I say, there's no concerns in any of those regards. What I would say though, like for me, as much as I do rate the player, and as much as I think that he will be a player that will come good and probably will end up in the Premier League in a couple of years' time, I could see him probably going somewhere like a Brighton or a Bournemouth or one of those types of places first, and everyone will be talking about him in a couple of years' time, saying, "Wow, Brighton have done it again." Is he the player for Tottenham? He's another 19, 20-year-old. We already have a couple of those in our midfield department. Then you bring in the conversation of we've got too many kids, and I tend to agree. I think, it's all very well always having one eye on the future, but first thing is first. And when you've got so much need for improvement, stability, experience, leadership, and discipline, and just reliability that's lacking in the first team, then if first thing is first, then you fix the first team first. And I don't think that we should be doing that by looking at more 19, 18, 19-year-olds. At what point do we say then, if our continued focus is on 19 and 20-year-olds from elsewhere, or what point do we just shake hands with the reality that the best we're ever going to get out of some of these young players that are in our own youth team, our own academy, is a few million quid sell-ons if some of them do okay on loan? The likes of Jamie Donnelly, the likes of Will Lancashire, the likes of whoever, maybe not Vescovic, but most of the others. If we're constantly looking to supplement our first team by going and getting teenagers from elsewhere, there has to be some sort of recognition that the youth team squad isn't developing at the same rate as what you can get elsewhere. And that may or may not be true, but either way, if every time you're looking at a player, the subtitle is he's the next, insert so-and-so here, the next Kevin De Bruyne, the next Harry Kane, the next Romero, the next whatever. Like, why don't we go and get one of those guys that are not the next, but they're the now? They are the guy, not the next version of the guy. Listen, it's not easy because money's doesn't grow on trees, and the cost of transfers, the cost for talent these days is through the roof. But I think that we do have enough children, enough teenagers, enough prospects in and amongst our youth system and within the first team already, so that now we can go and focus on some 24, 25, 26-year-olds. And as I said before, if the entire market has pivoted to this youth-centric model and everyone's fishing rod is in the same pond, then if the demand and supply economics of that game have a natural conclusion, which is that you end up overpaying for unproven talent because it's a bidding war for all of the best 18 to 21-year-olds out there, then surely the same or the inverse must be true of the more established sort of contingent of players that are out there. If most people don't want to sign a 26, 27-year-old anymore because there's no sell-on value, then surely that means that fewer rods in that pool would allow you to have some leverage in the negotiations. And if Tottenham now don't need the kids but need the experience, then surely that's a good thing, and we should be going and looking in that 27-year-old market, because what Tottenham need right now, as I say, is to focus on the first team for today, and we can kick the can a little bit, hoping that some of the guys we've already got for tomorrow are going to be able to make it. And Kees, Smit, for me, whilst I absolutely see him in a couple of years' time being a household name in the Premier League stakes, and I absolutely recognise that he will end up going to a team that is known for picking up the best talents out there, similar to a Victor Froholt, who we've spoken about many times. They're all super talents. They are all very, very capable, very, very competent, and they never let themselves down when they're playing in Europe, even though they're from leagues that you can question the transition from. When they play against more established teams from bigger and better leagues in European competitions, they don't let themselves down. If it's a sink or swim, then they definitely swim, right? And so there's nothing against these players, but I don't want to see any more of them right now. So I really hope that Tottenham are not going to spend all January focusing on bringing in someone who is going to be called the next insert moniker here. It's not something that's going to move the needle for me in the short term. As I say, we already have people like Berghvall and Sarr and Archie Gray, that another 19-year-old will either cop block, or we will just go round and round in circles like a dog, like Bugsy Malone trying to chase her tail. So those are the three main stories today, guys. I'm really sick of it. I want to see in terms of the younger stuff, I want to see some bigger names, more established names, and hopefully we can get one or two of them through. Just a little update for you as well regarding, I brought to your attention the other day the story that people were trying to make sense of it with regards Ivan Toney, and it's been sort of poo-pooed since, saying that it's not going to happen. He's we're never going to pay his wages, and he's pretty happy where he is. So if it's not Ivan Toney, then where else is it going to go? Well, look, I've had this conversation with Johnny on Football Inc. yesterday, I think it was. I've done some looking around into the Y-Scout, trying to find who are the reasonable strikers that are out there, the names that we could attract that are currently at clubs where there's obviously some leverage that we can lean into regarding their financial situation, or the fact that the player would like to step up, or whatever. And if I'm entirely honest, the names that I made a 10-man shortlist of viable names that I wouldn't hate the idea of seeing. And it was really difficult to get to the sort of 8th, 9th and 10th names. I was even including players like Muniz from Fulham on there, who I really don't want to see at Tottenham at all. But that's how dry the market is right now in the striker market. In the summer, there were so many names that were knocking around, and everybody went after them. And basically 90% of those names ended up moving homes. And so, there's not that much left out there. And the ones that are out there that are still looking for homes, well, there's a complication as to why any move for them isn't going to be easy, such as huge salary demands, or their age, their profile, their viability for the Premier League. Players like Vlahovic, players like Ivan Toney, they're bigger names, and there's probably more confidence in their abilities, but they come with those complications. You're looking at Samu Agahawa. People are talking about him like he is, again, the next insert, world class player there, and he really isn't. He's good, but he's not great. And his numbers in Portugal come with the absence of a decent level of output against the biggest teams in Portugal. Most of the goals that he has scored at Porto have been against the bottom half table teams, of which, when you look at those teams that they're playing against, you won't recognise any names on those team sheets. So, it's another one of those kind of, is he just very good at that level in that league, and does he look like he's brilliant? Or is he going to transition? I honestly don't know, but the amount of money it's going to cost it's a head scratcher whether it's worth the punt. It really is. But if you don't take a risk, you're stuck with what you have, and what we have isn't good enough. It's just a shame that the level of quality that's out there right now is so poor, because you end up committing for 5 or 6 years to players that you probably wouldn't be looking at if it wasn't for the fact that the market's as dry as it is. Either way, Yeah, it's a strange one. There's a name that I brought to your attention back in the summer called Francolino, Jew from Midfield, who had a fantastic season last year. I think he's from Guinea-Bissau, a big, strong player, very fast, young as well. I think he scored 11 goals in 11 games for Midfield this season. I think they're 3 from 3 in the Europa League as well. So again, that transition from the Danish league into European football, are they good enough? Well, it looks like they are. And is he good enough? Well, it looks like he is, but it's another risk. I do rate him. But again, young player, is it going to satisfy the fan base? I'm not sure, guys. You let me know. Let me know if it will satisfy you. What about a player like Rayan from Vasco da Gama? You know, another kid. They're trying to sign him down to a new contract with an elevated release fee. Tottenham apparently all over that one, trying to get the conversation started for maybe as early as January. But again, like, he looks great. But how many wonder kids from Brazil have we heard of, you know, that are come to Europe and then don't make it? Victor Roque was one of them. He's another player we're linked with right now. Roque, you know, came from Paratici, went to Barcelona at 17, flopped. I say flopped. He was 17 for God's sake. It goes to Betis, does okay. Ends up going back to Palmeiras. Had a great season. Now apparently he's got itchy feet and wants to come back to Europe again. And Tottenham are interested, like they were when he was at Betis. Big, strong guy, built like a cruiserweight boxer. Good. Doesn't really excite me. But this is the level of talent that's available, guys. It's a concern. The time to have gone for a striker was in the summer. There was lots and lots and lots of players out there. But they all found new homes. The vast majority of them found new homes. And so now we're turning up to the party when all of the good-looking girls have gone. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe and comment. And I'll see you on a show for the game later on. Come on, you Spurs. I'm going to say it's a 1-1 draw. Tough game today. Love it if we got the points. But, you know, David Moyes' team's well organised. Everton very good in their new stadium. So it's going to be a tricky one. But then every game is tricky. As we saw last night. Shout out to Brentford. Unbelievable. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always,